Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to talk about a really curious gap. It's kind of like a scientific mystery happening in the world of wildlife and environmental science. You see, it's a field that's absolutely packed with brilliant women at the start of their careers. But as you start looking up the ladder, they just seem to vanish.
And that right there, that's the central question we're digging into. The data shows us that when you look at students at the PhD level, it's pretty much a 50-50 split between men and women. So if women are flooding into the field in these huge numbers, why aren't we seeing them in the top jobs? Where in the world are they going?
All right, to solve this puzzle, we have to start with one of the most important things in science, maybe the most important, publications. Getting published is everything. And the names on those research papers, well, they tell a story. And that story is our first big clue. Now check this out, because this is where it gets really interesting. About 40% of first authors, those are the people who did most of the heavy lifting on the research, often scientists early in their careers, are women. And you know what? That's a pretty strong number. But then, look at the senior authors. These are the principal investigators, the heads of the lab. That number just falls off a cliff. It plummets to just 25%. That is a huge drop-off. So when you see a drop that big, you gotta ask, why? What's the deal? In the first place, people usually point the finger is journal bias. The thinking is maybe the scientific journals themselves, the gatekeepers of all this research, are just actively discriminating against papers submitted by women. So let's see if that's actually true. So on one side, you have the common assumption, but on the other, you have the cold, hard data. And this is where our little mystery takes a really unexpected turn. Study after study of ecology journals found that when a paper gets submitted, it has an equal shot of being accepted. It doesn't matter if the author is a man or a woman. And this number right here just hammers that point home. Researchers did a super deep dive on one journal, Functional Ecology. They were searching for any little sign of gender bias in their peer review process. And you know what they found? A big, fat zero. Nothing. Papers from women got similar scores and had the exact same chance of getting published. So our first suspect is officially off the hook.
And this is the pivot point. This changes everything. If women are writing fantastic papers and the journals are accepting them fairly, then the problem has to be happening way before the paper is even submitted. Something is preventing women from getting into those senior leadership roles in the first place.
And that brings us to the real culprit, a concept that researchers have dubbed the leaky pipeline. It's a great way to think about it. Just imagine a long pipe carrying talent from one end to the other. If that pipe has a bunch of holes along the way, you're going to lose a lot of that talent before it reaches the end. Well, that's exactly what seems to be happening to women's careers in science. And here you can see the pipeline leaking step by step. At the PhD level, the pipe is full. 50% women, awesome. Then, boom, the first leak. It drops to 40% for first authors. The next leak is even bigger, a huge drop down to just 25% for senior authors. And by the time you get to the very end of the line, the most powerful gatekeeper roles like journal editors were down to only 20%. At every single step of a scientific career, we're losing more and more women. So why all these leaks? Well, the research points to issues with the whole system. Things like career breaks, say for starting a family, tend to affect women's careers a lot more. A lot of the historic networks have been, well, let's just say they've been male-dominated, and that can make it tough to break in. All of this adds up to fewer women getting the opportunity to lead the big, prestigious labs and projects, the very things you need to become a senior author. And wow, this chart. This is what the end of that leaky pipeline looks like. 80%. 80% of the people on these journal editorial boards, the ones who literally shape the future of their entire scientific field, are men. It's just such a stark visual reminder of that leadership gap we saw right from the start. This whole phenomenon, this idea of women being present, doing all the work but not showing up in the leadership stats, has been given a really powerful name. It's called the ghost effect. And here's what the ghost effect actually means. It is so important to understand this. Women are not absent. Their work, their contributions are massive. They are out in the field, they are in the labs, they are collecting the data. But despite all that hard work, their visibility, the credit they get, the recognition, it's just incredibly limited. And once you know what to look for, you start seeing this effect everywhere. You might have a field crew that's half women, but then the male principal investigator is the only one who gets featured as the expert in the documentary. They're the ones doing the day-to-day, hands-on work, but the big credit, the senior authorship, that goes to the person running the lab. They are there, but they become ghosts in the official story of the science. So, let's just bring this all together.
The data tells a really clear story here. The lack of women in leadership positions, it isn't about their ability, and it's not because journals are turning them away. It's about a system that makes them invisible.
This quote from the research just sums it up perfectly. The issue is not about an absence in effort or expertise. It's a problem of structural and cultural visibility. The system itself, the way it's built, causes their contributions to just fade into the background.
And that leaves us with what's probably the most important question of all. If we know this is a structural problem, not an individual one, what do we do about it? How do we start to fix that leaky pipeline? How do we change the culture so that everyone's contributions are seen and credited and celebrated? How do we make the invisible visible?